Hey everyone, and welcome to The Advisor. I am Lisa Urbanski, co-host of the show, and today it's Denmark meets Canada. I've got Sagar Constantin with me, and she is a renowned international speaker, a best-selling author. And on the last episode, she has a podcast on her channel, and on the last episode, she talks about unlocking the power within and becoming your own rock. It was amazing. She is the author of the book. Her current release, her most recent release, is called Be Your Own Rock. And I'm so pumped because today she's going to talk to us a little bit about her story and how she empowered herself. And so you listeners can use that to empower yourself. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me back.
Amazing, amazing. So you're in Denmark and you were just telling me about it was 18 degrees today.
Oh yeah, it's spring here. It's so beautiful. And with spring you get all this new energy as well. That is empowering, I guess, among other things. So yeah, I just love it. It's beautiful.
Amazing. Is that the like kind of the butterfly cocoon? How do you refer to that? Is that starting fresh?
Yeah, I think the crisp feeling of the energy in spring really helps you to open up and come out of the darkness into the light and use this energy to do the things you've been longing for, do the things you've been thinking about for a long time and put them into action. So we really supported in spring also to take new steps because we get this new energy every single morning we wake up. So I think it's a beautiful time to actually do things that you've been wanting to do for a very long time.
Mm. And I love that we're talking about you today. And I love that we're going to connect the audience to you and like all the things that you've been through in your life to lead you to today. So do you want to get into that? Can we delve in and can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you've been and how you got here?
Sure, sure. Well, it's been a long journey, but to keep it a little bit shorter than the long version, I started out in television, and I used to
Mm.
be very ambitious. I wanted to get to the top. I was struggling. I was fighting my way through, and I couldn't really feel my own emotions
Mm.
because from my upbringing I was always taught not to get in touch with your emotions because I was kind of taught that they were in the way. You shouldn't really show any feelings. You shouldn't really show how you were because that was the same as being weak. And getting into television, it was kind of the same because there were so many big egos in television.
Uh,
And as long as I couldn't feel anything, I was really successful. But then I also realized that half of me was missing. Whenever I had time off, I had this feeling of being really sad and I was afraid to fall in to this ocean of emotions that where I thought I wasn't going to survive. So the more that I worked, the harder I worked, the more I actually thought I was surviving in a good way. But the fact was, I was dying slowly because I was losing myself more and more. And it was really hard to realize this because it also meant that I had to turn my life upside down, that everything I believed to be the truth turned out to be absolutely not the truth, not even a part of the truth. So I thought I knew myself really well. I thought I was powerful, but this power I had at that time, it was it was really challenging to have that power. It was energy consuming because I was working overtime all the time. So I really had to be very much in control. And I feared letting go of control because I didn't know who I actually was if I wasn't in control. And I lived like that for many, many years, being so scared of emotions. And also, if I met people who showed emotions, I didn't know how to deal with it.
mm,
And I just, realized this is not good. And when I worked at television, it was really hard to stop because when you're very successful at something, you want to keep going. But the
right.
thing is, I think sometimes, you get a hint and then you don't listen. And then somebody or something is shouting to you a little bit louder. And if you don't listen, it just keeps getting louder and louder and
Yeah.
louder. And I didn't listen because I knew best. I was in control. So I was put on a show. I worked in the sports department, first in news and then in sports. And I was given this assignment saying, "You're in charge of this program." I was covering the Tour de France, the bike race,
Yeah.
was inventing this new program. And there was this other woman, and she turned out to be a psychopath. And I didn't know that, but she was really dangerous. But again, I couldn't feel it. I thought she was amazing because I couldn't feel anything. And she just
Can I
started to
interrupt you for a sec? I just have to
absolutely.
ask. You talk about not feeling, and if when I didn't feel I was okay, what do you mean by that? Why weren't you feeling anything?
Because I shut down all of my emotions. I thought, with my upbringing, I learned that emotions were dangerous. They were not acknowledged when I was a child. So I just shut down the connection to all my emotions, which meant that I had to work really hard to keep them suppressed all the time. So if, for example, I went out drinking, it would be really, really hard when you have a few drinks to keep these emotions shut down. But
Mm,
again, I put myself in situation also unconsciously to challenge myself to feel something. When bungee jumping, there's just a way to kind of
oh, yeah.
shortcut into, do I actually feel something? And of course I felt something, but I had such a hard time managing my emotions or dealing with them in a healthy way. So it was easier for me to stay in control and stay in the mind and just pretend I didn't have any emotions and be in
Okay.
control.
That
So,
makes sense. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. And now I want you to go back to your story, and you were talking about the psychopath. We
Yeah.
want to hear about that.
Oh, yeah. She was dangerous. She was really dangerous. I didn't
You
know because
psychopaths are, hey, oh my God.
they are,
Jeez.
especially if you're not aware of you're
Mentally,
dealing
the
with one.
mental game. Oh, tell
Yeah.
us about it.
Yeah, but she was very manipulative, and manipulative. She was manipulating anyway,
Yeah.
and first of all, what they do is they shower you with attention and they lift you up, and you feel like, wow, I'm the center of the world. I'm the greatest, at everything, and that's what she did. And then she got really jealous because the sports department actually began to treat me as I was the greatest and gave me all these different shows and assignments, and that took stuff away from her. So she got really upset. So she began
Mhm.
to give me really poor advice. You shouldn't ask for this now. You should wait until later, which turned out to be a catastrophe. You shouldn't do this. You should do this instead. And everything turned out really bad and poorly. I was in charge of the Olympic Games in Sydney and, as I said, the Tour de France. And I made some major mistakes because I just listened to her. And her only plan was to bring me down. As soon as she lifted me up, she wanted to bring me down as well.
Can I ask you this? When she
Yeah.
was telling you that advice, did you feel some kind of disconnect? Even though you were following her advice, did you feel a disconnect? Because I know when I'm talking to someone and their intention is not pure, I can
Mm.
almost feel that
Yeah.
insincerity, but I obviously haven't always trusted that. So I would have done the same thing. But did you
Mm.
feel that, or were you numb and you didn't trust it? Or you trusted it,
I
sorry.
yeah, I felt it. I felt it. But her acknowledgement of me and my longing to be seen by somebody like her was bigger than listening to myself. So I didn't trust
Mm,
that inner voice. I didn't trust my intuition because I wanted her attention and her friendship so bad. And that's what happens with psychopaths. They bring you in and they shower you with attention and you feel just amazing, and then they take it away, and then you do anything to get it back, and that's just a game that is happening. So you're trapped in this game of attention, energy, feeling center of the world. And I couldn't see through it. I didn't know what was happening. And then at the same time, I had a really hard time trusting myself. So I I was so unhappy. I remember, and once on the Tour de France, I was just, I was driving a car by myself, and I was crying. I was crying, and I was like, I'm going to leave this race. I'm just going to go home. But I always had this amazing willpower telling me, you can't quit. You have to stick with it. So even though I was absolutely wasted, I went to see the team and I sat with them, and everybody said, "Oh, are you allergic? What happened to your eyes?" And I was like, nothing happened. And I was just trying to maintain
Mm.
control. But I knew in that moment I couldn't continue like that. I had to stop and face my challenges. I had to stop and look inside and work out all these emotions that I had, all this history that I kept, bringing with me into all situations, all this unbalancing unbalanced emotions. So was really a wake up call that I I could not neglect. I couldn't ignore it because it was right in my face, and it was really a matter of life and death for me, because I was like, either you give up and you just drive over that cliff and that's it, or you begin to listen, because you cannot overhear this message. So what happened was, when I got back, it got worse and worse and worse. And in the end, I was actually told that I couldn't continue on the show that I invented myself. And that was really the last drop for me.
Sorry, what? You were told you couldn't continue on your show.
Yeah, I'd invented a show on that we created this show, and I was the director of the show. And my boss phoned me up and said, "Well, you cannot continue on this show because the psychopath wants it." That's what wasn't his words, but she wanted my show, and they were really afraid of her. So she went up to them and said, "You have to pull Saga off the show, otherwise I'm going to resign." And they were so scared of her that they actually called me and said, "You are out. You can stay in the sports department,
Wow.
but you are out." And I remember getting into work that morning, and my whole world just fell apart.
Yeah.
I was crushed, because it was my ego, it was my emotions. I couldn't keep them in control anymore.
Mm.
I was crying, I was furious, and I was sitting with this team, and I discovered, when I was actually vulnerable, they supported me. And I was like, this is
Whoa.
strange.
Yeah.
This is really strange. And there was especially one other woman, and she's a dear friend of mine today still. And she was like, "You are amazing, and you are going to get through this. And don't let the other person get you down. Doesn't matter, but you have to do the work now." And she said, "You'll get through this, but you have to stay true to yourself." And I was like, what does that mean? Because I don't know what it means anymore. I don't know who I am. And
Can I ask you a quick question before you keep
absolutely,
going? Was that the moment that changed the trajectory of the rest of your life? When
it
that
was.
show got taken from you?
Yeah,
Was
it
that the
was.
pivotal moment?
It was. It was. That was the moment I realized I can't continue like this, and I had quite a few phone calls to let me know you can't continue, but I wasn't listening.
The
So I
universe was
just,
screaming at you, girl.
yeah, it's like, "Keep."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it
I
ripped
was,
the rug from under you and said, "You're doing this."
well, that's how it had to be. And, I even
That's
called,
beautiful.
yeah, I called the director of the CEO of the television station, because he was, I mean, he respected me a lot, and I had a lot of respect at this TV station. And I called him and said, "I can't continue. I have to leave, and I will resign." And he was like, "You can't do that. How much money do you want?" And and I said,
Wow.
"It's not about money." He said, "You can
Yeah.
do anything at the TV station. You just tell me what you want. We want to keep you." And I just said to him, "There's nothing you can give me that I want, because I have to look inside. I have to
Beautiful.
find, I have to do this work, and then I might return one day," which I didn't. So, but but I just said, "There's nothing you can do. Thank you for asking. Thank you for offering this. I have to do the work myself." So this was hard, but it was the absolutely best thing that happened in my life, because that was my turning point. I really couldn't see it. I couldn't hear it, and I was too scared. What I realized later was that as long as I could continue, that continuing was less scary than the fear of changing. Okay.
Mm.
So continuing was less scary. It was, even though it was painful being me, not being able to feel myself or to be truly happy or truly sad or whatever, it was less painful than the fear that I had from actually looking inside. So I was more afraid of the change than the pain was, the amount of pain that I was in. So to make a real change in our life, the pain has to be greater than the fear of the
Right.
change. Otherwise, we're not going to change anything.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so tell us then what was your first step? What did you do? How did you start? I'm just dying to know. Or do you even know? Like what it like I know you must have been in this whirlwind, a tornado of just like uncertainty and emotion but do you remember what the first thing you did to start grasping on again and like changing?
Yeah, I actually remember the first thing I did. I
Oh,
went
I
home
love
and
it.
got a drink
Yeah.
because I didn't know what to do. So I think it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I went home and had a drink and like, what am I going to do? So drinking, of course, wasn't the solution. I didn't go into drinking, but I just had to have a drink. I'd never done
Totally.
that before. Yeah. But then, the universe steps up to support you. And I believe that we get the support when we're ready. And if we ask for help, help is always there. So there are some guardian angels in our life. This woman I told you about, she was one because she said to me, you have something important to share with the world. Stick to that. I didn't know at that time what it looked like. I neither did she. She said, well, you can always become a speaker and talk about how it is to work in television. And I said, I don't know. I don't think I can. But she was like, yeah. You'll be an amazing speaker. She didn't know that 20 years later, this is what I do, for a living internationally. So she was actually supporting me right there, even though I couldn't see it and she saw it. But, the next thing that happened was that I met this amazing man who was so much in his emotions. And
Mm,
he said, do you want me
interesting.
to help you? And I was like, I don't know if you can help me because I can't feel anything. But he was very persistent and he said, well, I can help you. And I was like, okay, give it a try because I like to challenge people. And the first few times I sat down with him, he was just looking at me. I was like, why is he just looking at me? He said, well, how do you
Mm,
feel? And I was so good at describing how I felt without feeling it that I nearly fooled him. But he
mm,
could see through it because for so many years I've been telling people how I felt without feeling it. But I was just listening to other people and I said, well, okay, this is what you say and this is how you describe an emotion. I was really good at it. But he saw straight through it and he said, no, you have to feel it. And I was like, but how do I feel it? I don't know how to do it. And we just, for the next 6 months, every week I sat down with him and did some meditation, some guided meditation, some breathing work. And we just started to go deeper and talk about what happened in my childhood, talked about my life. And slowly, everything started to open up. And I spent about 10 years of my life just looking in. I worked at the same time, of course, but I did courses, I did therapy. I became a professional psychotherapist.
mm,
And all this work just supported me in reestablishing the connection with my emotions and becoming friends with my emotions, because I think that is what it's all about, that you become friends with these emotions. Because if we don't have the emotions, we don't know what is guiding us in our lives. We don't know why we're making decisions that we are missing out on life itself. We can't be self-empowered if we don't have our emotions available, because emotions are such a big part of being human being. It is the only thing that actually artificial intelligence doesn't have. That is emotions. Everything else it can actually pretend that it does have, but emotions it will never have, and it will never be able to actually act out as if it has emotions. So emotions are so important for human beings. So for me, turning around and facing my emotions, becoming friends with all my emotions, began to give me this feeling of empowerment.
Mm. So who was the man? Is he a romantic connection? Was he a partner? Was he just someone you met and changed
Well,
your
yeah,
life in that way?
in the beginning, he was just somebody I sat down with. We turned later on. We got married. We have a son together. We're divorced,
Oh,
but he's still in
okay.
my life, and he's a great friend now. And I see him 3 or 4 times a year. He spends Christmas with us every year, and he's a very wise person because he's able to see through what other people can't see through, and that's
Mm,
a great ability he has. And also, he's very much connected with his emotions. So, because he had done the work, he could show me the way back to feeling myself and opening up to these emotions. So, it was amazing. And from there on, everything just fell in place, and I got more and more comfortable with myself, with my inner power, becoming aware of my thoughts, my emotions, my personal beliefs, and also the limitations of thoughts and emotions. So that was really a great turning point for me. But being seen and also getting this feeling that a feeling can't be wrong. Whatever you are feeling, it cannot be wrong because you're feeling it. And that was
yeah.
also very important for me. And to rewire my brain that I kept before I kept believing that showing emotions was the same as weakness, because that was what I was told when I was a kid. When I was showing emotion, I felt weak, or I was told that I was weak or wrong. But discovering that when you're really friends with your emotions, they are your power. They are such a great asset that we have as human beings.
What do you mean by they're your power?
Well, you know that for example, anger. If you're not friends with your anger, it will take over and it will run off with you. So in that case, it's not powerful. It just pushes other people away. But if you're friends with your anger, it turns into your personal power, because beneath anger is our personal power. But if my anger is out of balance, it will stand in the way from my personal power. So instead of being powerful as a human being and standing up for yourself, you will think that you have to use anger to tell people what to do or not to do, or to become powerful. You need to have other people to fear you, or to actually share fear instead of trust. But when you work through your anger, you'll fall into the layer of personal power and empowerment. And there you don't have to raise your voice to make other people listen to you, because you send a stronger signal of power because you rest inside, and you feel empowered from within. You don't have to push out with your power to make people believe you or hear you. So you come from a totally different place of trust and love instead of fear and anger. So getting to know your anger is really important. And many people, including myself, didn't do the work because I was afraid of my anger. I
Mm,
thought, my anger could kill people, and I'm sure it could. So if we get identified with an emotion, the emotion takes over and run our thoughts and our behavior. But if we can observe the emotion, it's totally different. Then I can breathe into it, I can look at it, I can watch it, and I can let other people, for example, if I got upset with you, Lisa, I could tell you, well, I'm really upset now. But I didn't have to shout at you. I didn't have to tell you off. I didn't have to talk to you in a bad way that made you feel less worthy
right.
or not comfortable. So that's what we do when we are identified with our emotions. But if I can observe it, I can share with you how I feel instead of just pushing the emotions out and letting you carry my emotion and letting other people take care of my emotions instead of I take care of my emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So much sense. I always say, he who angers you controls you. He who You could replace that with any emotion. Um,
Mm.
And when you're like able to just calmly, manage that and assertively talk to someone, it's whoa, what a great place to be. So I'm dying to know, our listeners are dying to know, what are the tools that you use? Maybe walk us through a daily routine. Do you have a self-care routine that you focus on every day to manage and, keep these tools sharp so that you're staying on this trajectory?
I think what happened for me was that I was forced to do this work, and not everybody's forced to do it. But when you do this work, you become more whole as a person, and you feel happier, you feel more fulfilled. You have a life that where you're in flow with yourself and other people. So there's so many great things that are happening, and you're just more happy and satisfied.
You're
And
emitting this light. I just want to say that you're emitting this light, and it's just beautiful. I just love it so much. Sorry.
oh, thank
Keep
you,
going.
thank you. Yeah, but I don't have a daily routine, but I did in the beginning, because what
Okay.
what we need to remember is to make this a part of us. We have to practice and we have to be persistent. For
Hmm.
years, I was persistent, and I did this work every single day. I paid attention, because for me, awareness is the key to doing this work. We have to see that we need to do the work, because if we don't see that we need to do the work, we're not going to do the work. That was the case for me anyway. I couldn't see the work was needed until it was right in my face. So we need to see, I need to do this work. I need to reconnect. I need to become friends with my emotions. And from that point, we need to find something easy and attractive to do. I did meditation every single day. Now I don't have to
Mm.
do it, because it's such a great part of what I do automatically. So I don't have to sit down and meditate. I observe my emotions all the time. I can't stop doing it. So all this work has been, made me be present with myself all the time. So I don't leave this space of meditation. I'm all in it all the time, observing. But as long as we're going in and out of this observing space where we watch ourselves all the time, we watch our emotions, and we are present with awareness. When we're practicing, we need to do some exercises to do it. And one simple exercise you can do, for example, of course, you can take a deep breath before you answer anybody. You can ask yourself, is this good for me? Is this something I really want? And take a deep breath. But I also do that when I have to make a choice. I ask myself, do I make this choice from fear or from trust?
Mm.
So I bring awareness in and ask myself, the choice I'm going to make, is it from fear or trust? And it's okay if it's from fear, because then I consciously know I'm afraid of this. That's why I'm going this way. Or I can choose now to go with trust and build on trust and open my heart, and then I'll go that way. And the more I confront myself with this question, I still do that all the time. Is this from fear or trust? Whenever I have to make a choice, the more conscious choices I'm making. Let's say I get really challenged. Something happens in my life and I get challenged. I ask myself again, with this challenge, do I shut down my emotions, or do I look at my emotions? Am I afraid of what's happening now, or do I trust that I can cope with it? If I trust, I will embrace the emotions, I will breathe into it, and I will transform it. If I fear, I know consciously what I do, and many, many people do. We eat something with sugar in, because sugar shuts down our ability to feel anything. That's just the way sugar works. So when you eat sugar, you actually put a lid on your emotions. That is why
Mm.
people love sugar that much. And I loved sugar that much for many, many years. I ate so much chocolate, you wouldn't believe it. I thought it was the best thing to eat, but it was just not to feel anything. And
Yeah.
today I have a choice. I can eat it because I like it, or I can not eat it because I don't need it. So I have a
Yeah.
choice. But you need to make this choice available to you. So with consciousness, we ask ourselves, am I going with fear or trust? If we boil everything into the essence, that is what we have, fear or choice. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do when something happens, there's an action and there's usually a reaction, and
Yes.
it's that fast. Then what you can do is you can pause, and that is just take a deep breath, and you can create what I call a buffer zone. So something happens, you don't you react straight away. You breathe, and then you ask yourself the question, fear or trust? And after you ask yourself this question, you have the freedom of choice. Will I continue to do as I always done, or will I do something else? So first you
Mm.
breathe, then you check in with yourself. So you pause, you reflect, and then you zoom out. And zooming out means, why am I reacting like this? What is happening? What are you asking? What question are you asking now? What is happening? Why am I reacting this way to what you're asking me? So I'm trying to, first of all, to stop. Then I'm just checking in with myself. And then I'm also checking in with you. It's because you want to know this and this, or it's because you might be a little bit afraid of something, you're reacting like this. So pause, reflect, and zoom out. Brings awareness to the situation, both for me, so I don't react in a way that I will regret. It makes me connect with myself. It supports me to connect with myself, but it also makes me understand why you're doing whatever you are doing.
Mm.
So it's a very simple thing, and it doesn't need to take more than 5 to 7 seconds, but we just have to remember, pause, reflect, zoom out. That also helps understanding yourself and understanding other people and making a better
Yes.
choice every single time, making a choice where you're true to yourself instead of a choice where you're unconscious and you will regret it. And you also sometimes do that with unconscious fear, because when I'm
Mm.
saying trust or fear, the fear that I can see, I can deal with, but the fear that I'm unaware of, I can't deal with. So for
Right.
me, I couldn't see that I was afraid of emotions. I couldn't feel my emotions. I was deadly afraid of my emotions, but I couldn't see it. When I became aware of it, I could begin to work with my emotions, but not until I saw it. So we have to bring it into the light. We have to bring it from the darkness into the light, and then we can begin to navigate consciously and empower ourselves.
Wow, I'm listening to you speak, and I know our listeners are thinking the same thing, but I always think to myself when I meet someone who doesn't quite have a level of self-awareness or isn't in touch with their emotion, I always think to myself, I wonder if if they were kind of born that way, if they don't have that ability. But to
Mm,
anyone who's listening that, has this feeling of numbness, Sagar is such a good example of how she taught herself to feel again. And so it
mm.
is in us. What a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah, and the only people who can't learn or regain the ability to feel are psychopaths, because they don't have it. They don't have the wiring in their brain to have empathy for other people. But I
Right.
remember when I was young, I couldn't feel that empathy either. I wasn't very empathic to other people
Hmm.
because I was so self-centered. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that I didn't have it. It just meant something in my life was so scary that I had to shut it down. I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. It was my way of surviving. So when you're listening out there, if you can't feel yourself, it doesn't mean that you're a psychopath. It just means that you weren't supported in the way you should have been supported. You can regain, you can work with this. And another thing that helped me on my journey was also, a person said to me, if it hasn't killed you already, if you survive this far, you cannot find anything when you look inside that will kill you because you survived. So remembering
Nice.
whatever you think that's so scary, finding you have survived it already. So there's absolutely nothing when you look back in time or look inside that can kill you, because then you wouldn't be here for sure. So find the courage and do it slowly. We don't have to do everything at a time,
Hmm.
but go and spend time with people, as I did, that do have empathy, that are great at showing emotions, that are strong at knowing their emotion, talking about their emotion. Go and get a hug, or be
Hmm.
embraced. But just that, supports the brain in reconnecting with the emotions. So such an important part of being a human being is to feel your emotions. And emotions are really powerful because they control our thoughts and our behavior.
Hmm.
So if we're not aware of our emotions, we're not aware of what is controlling our thoughts and behavior. So being powerful and becoming a powerful person with personal power really means that you get to know your emotions. Otherwise, it will be superficial. It won't be true. It won't be authentic. It will just be something that you pretend. But we can just push you a little bit and you'll trip over, just like I did. So really, if you want to stand firm as a rock, you have to get to know yourself and all the things that is happening inside of you that pulls you and pushes you and plays a role inside of you.
And what a perfect segue, because I want to ask you about your book and I want you to tell the listeners about what is Be Your Own Rock and is that the inspiration from your story? And is that teaching other people to empower themselves and to take control and learn about their emotions? And tell us about your book.
Well, in Be Your Own Rock, I put everything I learned on my journey that supported me getting where I am today. And I thought when I sat down to write this book, I thought, if I look back, 25 years, what would have helped me? What would I have loved to know? What tools did I need in order to do this work so it didn't have to take 10 years? And that's what I put in this book. So there's learning how to be true to your values, finding your values, which I find is so important, that you stand really firm inside yourself. You know what to say yes to and say no to. You get to know your personality type, so you know what is actually your inner strategy for communication and collaboration and communicating. But you also get to know the brain. How does the brain work? What is your survival mechanisms? How do they work? How do they look in your life? What about your emotions? I talk about emotional intelligence in the book, how to become emotional intelligent, and also how to change habits, because that is one really hard thing to do as well. And working with yourself is also changing habits, because
Yeah.
we can be really stuck on one way of doing things. But when you do this work, you have to do something differently. And you have to, as I said, be persistent. And in the book, I also explain, how can you become persistent? What is it? The key to actually succeeding with whatever you set out to do. If it's a dream, it's a vision, it's a personal growth thing, what is it you need to know about the brain and how the brain operates? So all of this is in this book. And there's a free workbook that comes with it, so people can take notes and they can really work through it chapter by chapter. And so many people has done it already. This is really a book I would have loved to have when I was actually beginning my journey. And also, if you are working with yourself and find this interesting, there's so many things in the book. There's books there's exercises, there's knowledge, there's wisdoms, there's examples, real life stories. So it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, there's definitely something to pick up. Yeah.
Beautiful. We're going to have a link to that book in our show notes for our listeners so they can easily click and find you. And if someone is looking to find you, where do they look? Where can we find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Sagar Constantin author, and of course on LinkedIn. If you want a professional connection, you can also find me there. I'm not a YouTube or X person, so LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, that's where they can find me and also get inspiration. Of course, they can sign up to my newsletter and get this more inspiration, whenever I send out. And also, I have an app. So if people want to test their personality type, there's a free app. It's called the Essence Personality Type. It's on App Store and on Android too, Google Play. And you can, for free, you can go in and test. Okay, this is a great way, personality types. It's a great way to begin your personal growth journey, because it
Mm.
tells you so much about your inner strategy and where you're in balance and where you're out of balance, and the work you can do to improve in different categories. So that's totally free if you want to go and pick that up. The Essence Personality Type.
Amazing. We're running out of time here. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today and being so vulnerable, sharing your story. I know you're going to help so many people with your words and your wisdom. And what a journey.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great pleasure. And I'm so happy that I can share the story and hopefully support other people. That's what I love to do.
Amazing. Do you want to leave our listeners with one last tip or advice or just something that you think would inspire them before we sign off for today?
Well, I think it's never too late to begin to be true to yourself. And doesn't matter how hard you think it is or how you struggle, there's always help. So always remember to ask for help and look for help. You're never alone in this world. And there's always people who want to support, but we have to look for it too. So the more we listen to ourselves, the more we reach out, the more help that we also get on this journey. So everybody want to support other people. So really the first step is always the hardest. So really be curious. That is the most important thing. Be curious, and then begin to choose between trust and fear, and then I'm sure we will improve, and you'll see improvements in your life.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You guys, that was Sagar Constantin coming in from Denmark and sharing her wisdom internationally. I just loved that conversation so much, and I cannot wait for the next episode. Do you have any ideas of what we're going to talk about? Let's give the
Oh,
audience a little teaser. What do you think? What do you think?
definitely something with personal growth. Definitely something with personal growth. But let's see what comes up. Maybe
Okay.
I have one topic that I love, and it's called Easy is Right. Maybe we should touch down on that, how you can live a life in flow and go through life in a greater flow where you listen to the universe and all the messages and you're true to yourself. And that is what I call easy is right. So you let go of the struggling and then you stay true to yourself. That's just one idea. Let's see how we go next time.
Ooh, amazing. So tune in next time, you guys, because she's going to get us all into flow. And that's all for now. I'm Lisa Urbanski with The Advisor, signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we cannot wait to see you next time.